Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. First call, another round of Brandon Aiyuk trade rumors. Roman Wilson was at no point NFL game ready for Steelers. Get ready for another round of Brandon Aiyuk trade drama. We give you some more texture to Roman Wilson's lack of participation during the 2024 Pittsburgh Steelers season. You'll be introduced to a potential Steelers draft prospect with a local connection. Plus, we preview the Penguins' busy weekend and update Alex Ovechkin's goal chase. Here we go again. Early this week, The Athletic's Diana Russini said there were some teams poking around to see if the 49ers would be willing to deal Brandon Aiyuk. When asked about that story at the NFL Scouting Combine, San Francisco General Manager John Lynch did nothing to quell the conversation. That typically happens with really good players, Lynch said in a post by SI.com's Grant Cohn. I remember 2 years ago having similar conversations. You get calls, and you always listen to calls. Since Kyle Shanahan and I have been here, we've been the number 2 cash spending team. In the last 4 years, we're the 4th highest cash spending team. So, at some point, you have to reset a little bit or at least recalibrate. You can't just keep pressing the pedal. It was just last offseason when we tracked a months-long saga of the 49ers potentially trading Aiyuk before they eventually signed him to a 4-year, $120 million contract extension. The Steelers were frequently mentioned as the primary potential trade partner for San Francisco, but a deal never materialized. Aiyuk went on to catch just 25 passes for 374 yards and no touchdowns in 7 games before suffering a season-ending knee injury during the 49ers' loss to the Kansas City Chiefs on October 20. As Cohn pointed out, Aiyuk would have commanded at least a first-round pick and likely more in a trade. As he said, and I agree with, now, after Aiyuk tore his ACL and MCL, they'll be lucky to get a third-round pick for him. The Niners are also allegedly in the market to trade fellow wide receiver Deebo Samuel. The Steelers are believed to be a potential landing spot for him. There is no word if the Steelers were one of those teams poking around about renewing discussions with Lynch about Aiyuk. Rome wasn't built in a year. For those of us who wondered if Roman Wilson's lack of participation throughout his rookie year was about more than just his training camp injury, a story on the team's own website is lending credibility to that speculation. In his Asked and Answered mailbag at Steelers.com, Bob Labriola posted a question about Wilson's lack of participation all year. My understanding of the situation is that at no point was there a legitimate level of confidence that Roman Wilson understood the offense and his responsibilities within it to the degree that would allow him to execute it at game speed during the stretch run of an NFL regular season, Labriola said. There was a general undercurrent that Wilson may have had issues getting up to speed in time for an NFL game during his rookie season beyond just his ankle injury suffered early in training camp. Labriola's comments seem to confirm that hunch. A third-rounder out of Michigan, Wilson injured an ankle on the 6th snap of the first padded practice at St. Vincent College. Irish eyes were smiling. A potential first-round pick with some local ties met with the Steelers at the NFL Scouting Combine. Notre Dame cornerback Benjamin Morrison is rated as the 3rd best corner on the board and the number 31 prospect overall by CBSSports.com. Via a transcript from Steelers Depot, the 20-year-old says he spoke with Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin. He also discussed a lifelong affinity for the team and some Pittsburgh roots. It was cool, Morrison said of meeting Tomlin. It was a dream come true. My mom is from Pittsburgh, so growing up looking at them, it was always a dream to meet him one day. That was a surreal moment, but also, it's a job interview. So, I couldn't be a fanboy. Morrison, 6 feet, 190 pounds, had his final season in South Bend cut short by a hip injury after just 6 games. Over 31 contests with the Irish, Morrison intercepted 9 passes and broke up a total of 18. He also racked up 84 tackles. The Phoenix native also told NBC's Chris Sims that his idol growing up was Steelers safety Minkah Fitzpatrick. His father, Daryl Morrison, was a safety with Washington from 1993 to 96. Pittsburgh Steelers give huge hint at their NFL draft plans. Indianapolis. Are the Pittsburgh Steel era already showing their hand for their NFL draft plans? It very well might be happening, as General Manager Omar Khan and head coach Mike Tomlin remain hard at work. When the cornerbacks came to the podium at the NFL Combine, only 3 of the top cornerbacks said they had formal meetings with the Steelers, but those down the board did not. Maybe the top options could be in play in the first round, but cornerback is not a huge focus. Instead, that could come in free agency, where a lush crop of cornerbacks will be available for the Steelers. Meanwhile, the defensive linemen drew their interest. The Steelers talked to at least 10 defensive linemen for their formal meetings, showcasing continued interest in that position. It is a good guess the Steelers will end up drafting defensive linemen in the first 2 rounds, and given the depth of their interest, it could go all the way down to the 4th round, where they have a double-dip scenario. At this point in the offseason, the tea leaves start to show where the Steelers' priority is, at least in a modest sense, and defensive line continues to be the common thread. Old Pittsburgh Steelers WR target could be a trade candidate once again. A familiar trade target could again be on the move for the Pittsburgh Steelers. San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk is reportedly being floated around the NFL as a candidate to get traded, and teams have started calling the 49ers after his availability. Diana Rossini of The Athletic reported teams were poking around and asking about Aiyuk. When asked earlier this week, General Manager John Lynch did not turn it down right away. That typically happens with really good players. I remember 2 years ago having similar conversations. You get calls and you always listen to calls, Lynch said via Grant Cohn of Sports Illustrated. Since Kyle Shanahan and I have been here, we've been the number 2 cash-spending team. In the last 4 years, we're the 4th highest cash-spending team. So at some point, you have to reset a little bit, or at least recalibrate. You can't just keep pressing the pedal. Aiyuk is being paid $30 million per year after he inked his deal with the 49ers. The Steelers were involved in that trade scenario up until the very end. Yet, Aiyuk had a disappointing season after the extension, suffering a torn ACL that would end his season early. If the Steelers were to make that trade, they would be acquiring a player with a big contract and injury concerns. They are clearly interested in him as a player. And are you a fan? What do you think of the Brandon Aiyuk situation? Leave your opinion in the comments.